Hey guys, my name is Nibiri and it's time for another Since Saturday. And today I'll be giving feedback to some of the tracks that I got sent in. Let's just kick this off with the first track. This is State 1 with Circle of Eternity.
Everyone you meet is a fellow traveler in the journey of life. The circle of eternity. The circle of eternity.
Okay, so when hearing that first part, I like the atmosphere that you're putting down before the drop, but I do feel that when the drop comes in, the screech is nice and it has okay amount of reverb. Might want to get it a little bit more wet, but it's just a static rhythm, so it's kind of boring to listen to. And also over here at the end, when you're breaking up these kicks, maybe put in some snare roll or something that just builds up, or a riser, so that it's a little bit more emphasizing that it's the end of your intro, because right now you're having this screech in a static pattern and just the kick in a static pattern, and that's just a little bit boring to listen to. But a part of it just being a little bit boring to listen to, it's alright. The kick is good and the screech is alright, but I would maybe make it a little bit more outstanding with just some more interesting patterns with screeches or just stuff happening in the background.
Everyone you meet is a fellow traveler in the journey of life. Everyone you meet is a fellow traveler in the journey of life. The circle of eternity. The circle of eternity.
Okay, so when listening to the breakdown and the main drop of this track, it's interesting, but it's still on the polite side. The mixdown is alright, the sounds that you do put in there are okay, but there isn't really much creativity, but it's alright because it works. But a few things that I do want to note is that over here, when you're not really switching into the melody, but you're saying this eternity part of the sentence, and then it goes into build up with the kick, you might want to put some effects on the vocal over here, so it make it a little bit more low and growly, like putting it down an octave and then distorting it, so it becomes a little bit more of an effects on this part
of eternity.
That would just maybe make it a little bit more interesting and a lot more creative. They would put a little bit more detail in there. And listening to the drop with the melody and the kick, it just sounds, like I said, just a little bit too polite. The mixdown isn't wrong, there isn't much wrong, but I would add maybe like a more screamy synth and maybe put a lot more reverb on your leads itself, because the lead isn't, or the melody isn't too special, so you need to put in all these details in like the reverb and maybe a better delay, because right now I just feel that it's a little bit of a just a polite synth. There isn't anything really edgy about it. So you might want to try to get it a little bit more edgy, a little bit more screamy synth, and maybe just give it a little bit of a bigger reverb.
Everyone you meet is a fellow traveler in the journey of life. everyone you meet is a fellow traveler in the journey of life. The circle of eternity. Eternity. Eternity.
Over here at the end, you're really doing something special. So that really grabs my attention. And about the drop, the kick rolls are nice. So you do put some right variations in there, but I would still try to figure out how you can get a bigger decay for your reverb so that it sounds a little bit bigger. Yeah, the build-up is just the same, so there's nothing really to point out on that. But one thing I do want to say is that you have a nice balance with the vocal and the stuff behind the vocal. Over here, I can just understand what she's saying, and that makes it overall just a nice track to listen to. Next up, we got Fracture with Life's a Bitch.
Five is a bitch. Five is a bitch. Nobody stopping me. Five is a bitch. The bitch, 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 the bitch. Ain't nobody stopping me. Five is a bitch. Ain't nobody stopping me. Five is a bitch.
Okay, so the first small detail that I'm missing is just over here when your mix intro just finishes, add a hall kick in here, because right now this life is a bitch and then it's just empty. You maybe want to have a little bit more of a hall kick in there so it has a solid feeling from the beginning of the track. A part of that, I'm just not really hearing stuff in the background. Like the synth is okay for the melody and it's a little bit of a creative synth, so it's alright, but it's a little bit on the thin side, so you might want to add some stuff behind there, like pads, and you're especially noticing that like when you're going into the build-up, I think it's over here. Over here, it's just empty, and you might want to really use some pads and risers and other stuff behind there to make it a little bit more full. And then we come to the drop, and I like the kicks. The sound design is nice, but I feel you might want to make it a little bit more dirty with some more distortion. And personally, I like some gated kicks to have a little bit more of a stereo feel. So you might want to add some more reverb or make the reverb that you have in there from like the punch just a little bit louder, so it adds a little bit more on the sides. And the screech pattern is nice. The sound is also quite nice, and it's on top of the kick quite nicely. So the balancing is all right. But because you're using quite a small room for the reverb, it just sounds a little bit too dry. So either you might want to give it a bigger room, or you want to add some percussive elements or stuff that just fills it up a little bit more. Well, let's continue.
Ain't nobody stopping me. Five is a bitch.
I do really want to point out over here that synth that you're using, although it's layered, it's really, really thin. So you might want to give it some lower low cuts. Maybe you cut it up too high, or you want to add some extra layers, because right now it's really thin and it really doesn't have power. So you might really want to look at that and maybe just take the top lead, because certainly you like the top lead to use it in a full track, but you might just still want to throw everything away, a part of that top lead, and just redo the lead and just give it some more power.
Ain't nobody stopping me. Fight is a bitch.
Yeah, so I think when you're having a good lead, this whole track as a concept could work. And also this final kick that you're having over here with the extra tonal punch, you might want to just distort it a hell of a lot more, because the tone in there is nice and it just snaps nicely. So I really like that, but you just want to destroy that, you know, and make it sound good after it's just destroyed by distortion. So there's good sounds on here, and all I would say is just maybe make some sounds a little bit more fat, so that you're just having better quality sounds and it's easier to create a full track that way. Next up, we got Creepy D with To The Core. Now that atmosphere you're putting down is great. Although I just want to point out at the beginning over here, your mix intro, maybe just put that piano in there already, because right now it's just a little bit boring. And I'm really noticing that you're going for a certain vibe with the intro, so that's good. But it does make it a little bit less playable for in front of a crowd. It doesn't go as loud as other types of tracks, you know, but I don't think that's the goal for this track. And I really like the peaceful vibe. So to me, it's okay, but if you would make this for a greater public, you might want to switch out the intro to create something more with just some more drive. But this is really nice and peaceful to listen to.
Amazing and beautiful, not a flower or a tree. Much prettier than that, and only I can see. Loving and caring, right down to the core, filling me with happiness and so much more. Eyes are so stunning, cannot look away. Gorgeous and shining all throughout the day. Here in your arms is where I belong. The beating of your heart is like a beautiful song.
Okay, so like I said, just that peaceful vibe that we're getting from the intro, it's definitely continuing over here. And I do feel that your vocal could be a little bit louder, because right now sometimes I just don't really understand it. Maybe you want to compress that a little bit more so that you don't need to put it as much louder in volume, but it just stays a little bit more consistent in the overall volume. Then it switches to this melody, which is just again peaceful as the rest of the track is. So that's nice, but it's a little bit of a thin sound, and you might want to add just another layer in there, another top lead layer that's just more screamy. And with screamy I just mean a little bit more LFO, so just some more movement that just makes the sound a lot more full and just a little bit more interesting to listen to. And then when we come to the drop, it sounds nice because you're having these pads and stuff behind the melody, and then that's playing quite nicely and building the nice big atmosphere, the peaceful atmosphere that we're keeping throughout the track. But I do feel that you could give the whole lead a little bit more reverb then, so that the whole melody itself builds onto that dreaminess. And right now, when it's with the kick and the melody, you're just noticing that the lead is really thin. So you might want to just not only add one layer, but just add a few more layers, or make your support layer behind your top lead just a little bit louder. Because right now it's just falling apart a little bit, and you might just want to build a little bit more on that dreamy atmosphere that you're having. Okay, so now we got that final part of the track, and now this might just look a little bit ridiculous, but what I'd suggest is just honestly taking away this part, because this part is just relaxed, or maybe a little bit too relaxed in my opinion, because you're having this dreamy state, but there's not really much drive in there. You don't want to prolong that too much. So I just take away that first part, because it's just taking a little bit too long to me. And also over here, that whole part where you had to build up, and then you go into that fake melody drop-ish thingy, it's not really having the excitement that it should have. So I think that when you're just cutting this down to this bit and then having the next drop, it would just help so much in the overall drive of the track. And of course you need to make it sound better and just have it sweeps, but you can just keep that dreamy side of the track and just make this little bridge a lot more faster and just more interesting to listen to this way. But overall, it's a nice and really dreamy track, and I like it. The final one is T-Soulz with Optimus Prime. Okay, so we got this nice and raw intro. The sound design of that screech is alright, and all the modulation that you put in there is okay, but I do feel the screech is just a little bit lacking of texture, so you might want to add some more LFO or make the LFOs that you have in there just a little bit more prominent, so that just the sound moves a tiny bit more. Also, you want to put a lot more reverb on there, because right now it's just too dry. The kick itself is okay, it's decent, and you're just noticing that over here at the beginning, or well, in the little break, it's just a little bit too dry, and then that scream with the shut up, I don't really feel that that shut up really fits in this track. So you might want to get the shut up to shut up and just put something else in there, or maybe make another fill, so that it's just a little bit more fitting with the track. Then you're having these little previews of that melody synth that I'm sure it's going to come back over here probably. The lead is just a tiny bit thin, so you might want to redo that whole sound design, because it's really, it's just really thin. Well, let's just continue. Now I just want to break this down, because there's some interesting things going on here. You're having these big drums, or well, there should be big drums, but you're having them pretty much just in the background. And I used to make the mistake as well. You're putting all these details in there, but you don't really give them their proper spot. So next time, or maybe when you want to improve this track, just take these big sounds that you're having and put them in the right spot. So these big drums should be in front, so put them a little bit louder. And also a vocal is really important to be understandable. And right now I can only just hear that it's probably Optimus Prime, but I don't really hear what he's saying too much. So you might want to get it a lot louder. And then we switch into the melody. And the melody sound is okay. The top lead is nice, but you might want to make it move a little bit more. Just put some more LFO on there again. And that LFO will just help make it a little more screamy, but also a little bit more hardstyle-y. So I think that would really help out for this synth. And you might still want to add just some more full chords behind there, or maybe make your bass line follow the melody itself. And part of that, if I really just objectively look at the melody, I don't really feel that the melody fits the whole vibe that you're putting down in front of it. So you might want to redo your melody and just take this concept as a break and then just make something that fits a little bit more with the concept. But it's overall, the sound design is okay. Now that I'm hearing that full melody, I'm just noticing it just lacks the whole catchiness. It sounds okay as a melody, but it just doesn't really sound catchy. So you might want to really take a look into the melody and switch it out. Also, the crashes that you're using over here, I don't know if you filtered them or if they're just bad quality, but they just sound horrible with the kick and the melody itself. But I'd rather just have you switch those out because they really sound awkward in the high end.
Optimus Prime.
Okay, so that's a nice outro and it really just takes back on the intro. And overall with structure of a track, that's nice because now you're still building on that same theme that you're putting down. So that's a good job. I do like the whole fake drop just with the cut up kick, and it just works okay to just make a nice fake effect. Also, one thing I'm noticing over here, you're having these drums on top of the kick. Make them a little bit louder again, because that's some nice details that you're putting in there, but they're just not loud enough to really be audible. And you can just be a little bit bold with it, like Atmospheres does that as well. He just puts some rhythm on top of his kicks and just makes it quite loud, actually, so that you really can't unhear them, you know, and that just gives a nice drive. So that would really just put some more detail in here. Overall, it's a nice track, but I do feel it's just not as concentrated on a specific topic, but I'm sure that when you're just going to continue producing, that's going to get a lot clearer for yourself. Now, if you want me to give you some personal feedback, or you want your track to just be in a video like this, send it over my Instagram. Just send a Dropbox or a Drive link, and I'll just either give you feedback or I'll put it in a video. And yeah, I hope you like this and you learned something from this, and hopefully I'll see you back soon again. Cheers!